You should have in the chat a little form that I just worked out today that you can use. So for future reference, if you want to do an ad hoc poll in your class, if you press @ and then write the word forms, it'll open forms within the actual chat window, and you can do it straight in there, which I only just learnt as of 3 seconds ago when I was like trying to work out things that I normally do with different software that you can't necessarily do as easily in Teams. So I will have the chat open on another screen, so I can actually see if you have anything to chip in or to direct my general presentation as I go. So the prompt is just, have you made videos for students during remote learning? My presentation is basically called Keep or Add One Thing Instructional Video. So originally it was called Keep, but then I realized that would assume that you've already done one, which is probably not entirely accurate. So feel free to type or stop me at any time and jump in with anything. But I just thought to build on what Derek presented to us on the Tuesday, this feels like years ago. To do remote learning, you need 4 things. Asynchronous video is, to me, the one thing that's worth keeping from remote learning. I can't imagine video conferencing with my kids once we're back face-to-face. Maybe I'm short-sighted in that, but obviously offline activities is face-to-face teaching, so we'll probably keep that around. And then just, asynchronous video is the thing I think is worth keeping. So the challenges, according to me, are engagement, collaboration, and connection, and I'm sure we've all felt that, especially if we have kids that aren't turning up or are turning up just enough to be present without actually engaging with screens and so forth. So hence I made this little thing that I think kind of sums it up. So to get engagement and connection, I aim for asynchronous video to be doing a lot of that work, so engaging with the content and making connections with students between me and the student. And video conferencing I use mostly for connection and collaboration. So quite often if I'm presenting, if I have the thought to present something to my students, I'll log out of the video conference and I'll start recording a video just so that it's there from then on. I found this recently, I like the look of it. Like always, we're trying to rebuild the plane while trying to fly it. So obviously, none of this is especially, there are no great expectations upon you to do amazing instructional video or anything, but I just think it might be worth keeping around. This is my why. So I'll give you a second to take in the too much information that I put on this slide while I take a drink. Basically, I've always presented and talked about this. Technology is just one part of teaching, but during remote learning, the T kind of gated what was possible, how well you knew the technology gated what pedagogies you could use and how easily you could deliver content. So that's my impression. Feel free to disagree with me in the chat and I will fight you ardently. So this is what I'm all about, instructional video. I use it to allow greater flexibility for me, the teacher, to make it more accessible to students with disabilities. And I could give you a long list of which ones and how and why. It allows you to assist multiple students at once so you can differentiate at the point of need, and it's superior to other forms of learning resources, which sounds like a big claim, so I'm going to sort of back that up. Probably no one's interested in this, but this is kind of the research basis that I would build on. Cognitive load theory is the most current understanding, and see, it's 1994 of the way the brain works. Multimedia cognitive load theory, again, 1998, so these aren't amazingly new ideas. Flip learning 2012, these people are still kicking around selling the idea. In special education, they call it video modeling, but it's not too dissimilar. And also it's a concept that's involved with assistive technology and universal design for learning. And you could read the papers with me if you want, because they're all there. Basically, this looks overly complicated, but essentially, multimodal uses both the eyes and the ears at the same time, and for some reason that is more effective. And trust me, the rest is more complicated than that. There's 100 or so different studies that I could talk you through that all explain the way that a video in direct comparisons with worksheets, PowerPoint slides with audio narration, or even animated PowerPoint slides, what they call a pedagogical agent, which is like a little clip art or like that little paperclip thing from Word, if you can remember that, talking students through things and pointing them at important information. It's superior to all of those things. and we've known this for a long time. So I think we should probably be actioning that. In terms of how, if you haven't done one before, this is a different form than what I normally do, but basically you go type in camera into whatever device you're on, and then you click record. You can record a meeting like I'm doing now. It's really terrible quality. Google Meet does a slightly better job, but basically a video meeting is by definition turning down the quality so that you can have instantaneous interaction. OBS works well, and obviously Debut is another option also. This is brand new, as in like 3 days ago. So as of now, you can click create and go to record screen in Stream, and you can make a video directly there. It's a lot higher quality than in Teams. Flipgrid, if you've never heard of it, is a Microsoft product that you might be able to keep using once we're back to face-to-face. Basically, if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, that's a nerd group that I run for teachers who read academic research. So there's people from all around the world. Basically, you open the app on your phone, you press plus, it opens a camera, and it posts to what they call a grid, which is basically what you're looking at there. Series of video, kind of a receptacle for where short videos can go. And there's a million different ways you can use that with students to kind of get them engaged in what they're doing. If you really want, you can add Snapchat filters to the camera that you're using right now. I won't turn it on because it's a bit of stuffing around, but if you ever want to entertain your kiddies, that's an option. The bottom left-hand corner, my wife recorded a video for her kids about a poem called Spider-Man, so we had the Spider-Man filter on, which was amusing for us at least.
Stephen, how do you do that?
Yes.
How do you put the filters on? How do you put the filters on?
So you have to install a program called Snap Camera, and it just your computer believes that there's another camera in your computer that's called Snap Camera, and then you just select that as a mode in the device settings of Teams or whatever you're in, and then you can pick a whole bunch of different filters and things.
And that works on Teams as well, does it? Or is it only when you're...
Zoom, everything. Yeah, I've used it in every video conferencing platform. I use it to entertain the youngins, to be honest, when we're on a family call and little kiddies grab the phone. But if you go to the files tab of the team that we're in now, there's a document with all of the links that you can just go through. I think we're probably up to about the 5th link. And
I'm downloading it already.
Take you to. Yep, sweet.
Wow,
beautiful. One step ahead of me.
Thanks.
Well, good. Next one is, again, very brand new as of 7 days ago. So if you have a Canon DSLR, so one of those nice old cameras that a lot of us have sitting around that we thought we were going to be photographers or something, as of now, you can plug it into a USB and download some software, and it will work as a webcam. So if you ever want to show off, in the bottom left-hand corner, that picture there, that's I did a Zoom web conference using a DSLR. So I had, much higher quality video than everyone else. That's probably not relevant to you. Or, as I know Derek's in the chat, you could come up to A9 when we're back at school and try out all the various tools that we've got set up there. Green screen, light-board, podcasting stuff, microphone, the swivels, so you could record your teaching there. That would be really good. Obviously, me and Derek and Sam as well, Vernon as well, are all very open to showing people around and seeing what they can do there. Or make do. This is what excites me. So this is old slides that I've been presenting for ages to people, and this is as of the last month or so. I'm distracted by the chat. A whole bunch of people have been doing very similar things using a whole assortment of household objects that you can see there. Give me a second. Which will look a lot better than it does in that picture. Yeah, that's the plan. Good point. So yeah, if you, with a bit of ingenuity and whatever you've got, whatever phone you have, you can sort of set up a document camera or some kind of presenting setup. This is probably way over your head, so I'm going to skip over it, but this is my research into the different forms of instructional video and a bit of a summary of which ones work well with and without editing. But that's, again, probably way over what we're talking about here. So then the question becomes, where do you put it? To me, I like to think of it as a workflow. So a lot of people talk about pre-production, which is, scripting a video and planning it out. But I don't script or plan out when I talk to my class. So by the same logic, I wouldn't pre-prepare what I deliver to a camera, just as what I'm doing now isn't especially pre-prepared. Then you just film it, edit it. If you really want to, I'd recommend not, and then you publish it or upload it. So YouTube, click, view, stream. Obviously, our option is stream. So doing that natively within stream is probably the best thing. No need to edit. If you stuff it up, you start it again. If your video is that long that you can't do that, you're probably talking for too long, according to what we know about the recommended length of video, which is somewhere between 2 minutes, 46 seconds and 3 minutes to be quite precise. If you must, I recommend using Camtasia. It costs about $350, but it's like if you can make a PowerPoint, you can edit in Camtasia. If not, you can use Adobe Spark, which is for free. And, you know, Windows Movie Maker, let's never speak of that again. So for those people that have in the chat said that they've made a video, I'd love to challenge you on this one. According to the research that I've done and others have written, your videos will be better if they include gesture, if they include pointing or arrows. So YouTube clickbait is very effective. If you're drawing whilst talking, pardon me, using synchronized elements, so your voice and video together, short videos, facial expression, segmenting or chunking of videos. So if you've got a long topic, which exists, you make it smaller, as small as possible, and having your talking head is better and instructor presence is good. So if you can overcome your, you know, lack of self-confidence that we all struggle through, that will provably improve learning. That, you know, you can sit kids in a laboratory and you can find research that shows that. I tried to think of all of the good places where you might like to learn more about these things, just sort of to foreshadow conflict of interest. I'm involved in all of them, but I couldn't think of any others, to be completely honest. So Ollie Lovell, who's a teacher out in Sunshine, his education research reading room, he did a whole series on online learning and things like that. There's something called the Flip Learning Global Initiative that is global, about the best practices for flipped learning. Monash recently came out with a course called Online Teaching Interactivity with a guy named Matthew Fifield, who's probably the Australian leader for instructional video and YouTube. And then the TER podcast, again, is Bridging Research, and they have a whole series on online learning. Pardon me while I read the chat. Camtasia is ace. Haven't used it for a few years. It's still good. It's still very good. All right, so for the next 2 weeks, here's some ideas that I really was excited by. Basically, I probably had less of kind of direct teaching required of me, just because I've got roughly 450 videos already set. So I could say to kids, watch this, do that, watch this, do what it says in the video. And that freed up time for me to focus on engagement, connection, and collaboration, which are the 3 things that I think are most challenging to do in online learning. So, and I might even ask if you want to put in the chat what you found especially engaging or useful to draw kids into your lesson or to get them awake online and so forth. If you want to put that in the chat, I'd love to hear other ideas. These are a couple of hooks or starters. Obviously, these aren't main activities. What I've really enjoyed is the structure of asking kids to kind of say that they're there. I turn that into sort of a bit more of a daily check-in approach. So I'd ask kids, you know, what's Shakespeare's best movie? Wrong answers only. Would you rather have 4 arms or 4 legs? Would you rather have no tongue or no ears? Yada, yada, yada. This is just a summary. I've done one for each of all of my lessons. And that kind of, it's good for connection, I found, because you get to know more about your students and you sort of see that they're there and awake and alert, which is always good. And then invariably something will come up and then you'll kind of find something that's worth, you know, referencing back, becomes an in-joke or whatever in your next lesson.
So Stephen, do you
yes.
put that as a comment that, and you get the students to comment in chat, or do you ask them like verbally?
In the thread. So kind of like in the first 3 or 5 minutes, I do like a text question. Yeah. And then once we start our video call, then I'm kind of like, instead of just doing that awkward, like, hello, how are we? Is there anyone here? You know, as people pop up, I'll be saying like, oh, today it was, the question I asked was, what's something that you value that no one would pay any money for? So in my year 8 class popped in and said a waterproof paper boat so that she could win paper, I don't know, So she explained that to me, and then that was kind of the conversation that people witnessed as they came into the class. So I think I found that a bit more kind of human rather than just, you know, a blanket, who are you, how are you?
It's good.
Cool. Quizzes, Kahoot. I prefer Kahoot. Quizzes is a bit lame. Werewolf Online is a game I've used with my EAL class. It's kind of, I think probably Tim Roach's kind of crew would know about it really well. In the night, you know, the werewolf comes and yada, 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 but it's very literacy heavy. And so the students would have to learn how to do it and kind of interact that way. Scribble.io is kind of Pictionary online for 12 people or less. So I've used that a couple of times just to kind of get the vocab happening, to get kids awake and online in the first 5 or 10 minutes, and then we jump in. If you ever need to make a decision, rock, paper, scissors online is really useful. There's a whole bunch of card games, but probably that's a bit off topic. And we played Taylor Swift or Shakespeare with my Year 11 class to sort of get them awake and alert. Another thing I did most recently is I asked the kids to share a song that I should listen to, which is something I did ages ago on Twitter, and all these teachers gave me the playlist on the left. And so at the moment I've got a mixture of Year 8, Year 10 EEL and Year 11 music to listen to, which is of varying quality, as you might imagine, but it kind of gives, again, another hook and also something that I can share with the students and kind of discuss, you know, well, that song of yours was pretty rubbish, like this trumpet one in particular was really awful, was probably a joke, and so on. Main activities. All right, I'm going to pause here. So we've got music card game where you need to guess the song title. Beautiful. Collaborative groups. Excellent. What would you take with you if there was a zombie uprising? That's good. I'm going to steal that and use that tomorrow. Sophisticated approach, show and tell, using household objects for hums. Love that. Quizzes, Kahoots. Beautiful. Yeah, what would you take with you in a zombie uprising? That's good. Yeah, because I'm always invariably sitting there at the start of a lesson kind of going, what should I make up today? According to research, so collaboration, focusing on building collaboration and group interaction may be more important than focusing on individual participation. And evidence shows us that learning in online environments enhances student learning more so than individual learning, and that interaction is essential. So that probably should have been at the start, to be completely honest, but hence my concern about collaboration. This is a fun one. So you get one student to Google image search a picture, and they have to, with their screen off, obviously describe what they see. So along the left-hand side, that's the drawings of the class, and that's the picture that was being described, which is amusing in and of itself. This is an EAL strategy that's commonly used, but of course, since we're online, you don't need a barrier or anything like that. What's really excited me is Socratic circles is something I do normally in class, which is basically an inner circle have a discussion about a piece of text, which could be anything from your subject, and the outer circle kind of sit around and take notes on what's discussed and also the nature of discussion and sort of how well it went and so forth. And so we've done that online in the same format. Obviously, it's easier for me because my students are familiar with the concept and we've spent probably a couple of lessons explaining it and how it works, but it works, I wouldn't say better or worse, but it works differently online, as you might imagine, because you can't see the sort of physical interactions of the students and they can't kind of non-verbally cue one another. So there's a little bit of sort of as people leading to their points so people know they're about to speak, but very interesting. Collaborative groupings, of course. I imagine everyone's using OneNote to do this, but just in case you're not familiar, if you go to share within a Word document or PowerPoint or anything, you can just email it to people and have them all in the same document. It's not ideal as OneNote is, because obviously you can't go in and check out and do all that sort of stuff, but the majority of my Year 8 work has been collaborative, and they just kind of enjoy it and get straight into it without me having to directly instruct them. Obviously, I've set up the structure and how it works and so forth, but I've found that useful. Does anyone have any juicy ideas to collaborative groupings that I haven't thought about yet that I should? In the chat, perhaps? Teams documents, something for me to look into. Another thing that this is kind of, you know, students and people of their age go into things like, you know, Twitch streams and things like that and watch people play video games live. And so what I've occasionally done is we as a class will watch shared video. So like we watched sections of Macbeth, little summary videos that I made on the topic of Macbeth. And obviously you mute all the kids and then you ask them just to use chat, and you can sort of have them live reacting to video. So that's something that you just use in Teams. And they kind of seem to get a lot more quickly than us, whereas we're sort of, what's the point of that? They get it straight away. One thing I'd highly recommend, I use an app called Popsicle Sticks. I've got all of my class lists in there, and I can open it and it will give me options of like, I need 4 groups, I need 3 groups, I need 2 groups, I need groups of 5, I need 5 kids, I need whatever, and it'll randomly put them into groups because I think, and I use this when I'm asking questions of students as well, because the fact of online learning is a very privileged position. So it's much easier for me to call on students with their video on and their microphone working. And of course, the fact that they have video on and microphone working is itself indicative of privilege. So I've found from my questioning habits that it is by definition sort of privileging certain kids and certain groups. And so I use this to try and counteract that through a random method. And this is what I use for my collaborative grouping. So each group will be randomly assigned so the students can learn, how to be human beings, I guess. How am I doing for time? We got 6 minutes. All right, so I'm gonna fly through my why of big picture. I'm currently reading this book called Platform Capitalism, which basically says that each platform, so Google, Microsoft, and so forth, the whole point of their work is that they need more users, more data, and therefore more activity. And so that also invariably means that the work that we do in schools, if we're a Microsoft school and the school next door is a Google school, we're not necessarily as easily able to collaborate. So a big thing that I'm all about is sharing our teaching resources as widely as possible, Creative Commons, YouTube, ClickView, SlideShare, whatever. Not teachers pay teachers, because that's people are making money off that, obviously. But the idea is share what you've got and avoid the walled gardens of platform capitalism. And instead of one teacher, there's many. And I would hope, even if you haven't made a video, perhaps you found a video online of another teacher teaching your subject that you found useful. Obviously, they'll never be perfect because we're all idiosyncratic teachers who like things done our own way and we're all control freaks. But still, there's some good stuff out there that we can use. And obviously, the whole point is be brave, share your work, because as I'm fully aware, everyone gets a bit shy in front of a camera and hates hearing their own voice and thinks that they sound strange because complicated things that no one cares about. And then I would say share it on somewhere, YouTube, ClickView, Free School, For Us, Stream, but put it somewhere where someone else can benefit from it. So I'll just catch up here. Can anyone suggest the best way for me to do that online or on Teams? I would suggest, Jane, just sharing your screen and having it set up in whatever you normally watch videos in. But maybe that's not answering your question. I've used videos that other teachers at BFC have made. Ooh, go on, Marianne. Which ones? Tell me more. The reason I put my things on YouTube is because there's 87% of instructional videos in the world exist there, so that's a conscious choice. I also post to stream as well because that's for us. My timing is going quite well. If you want to do some on-demand online learning, I run these things called online TEACHMEETs that we started out of COVID. So it's basically what I'm doing now, but shorter. Teachers present for 2 or 8 minutes on their specialist topic, their specialist interest, and we run it on YouTube. So we have the thing that I just described, which is live chat happening and people asking questions. This is the one that we had a while ago. So we had a couple of famous people, if you know who those people are or not, Peter Hutton, Yasadai, Civil Kumaran, and a couple of people from around the world joining us. The most recent one, a bunch of tech people, so they were talking about stuff that I didn't fully understand, like XR and robotics and coding and fancy stuff that impressed me. And the next one we've got coming up is this juicy titled one, Challenging Teacher Bashing, the Role of Democracy in Australian Schools. And we're able to get Jane Caro and Adrian Pickley and a whole bunch of other people with PhDs in education and democracy. There's some boring references, and that is the end of my quite accurately timed 30 minutes. If you want, obviously, there's a whole lot of more detail specifically around different things that you can try. But I'm going to pause instead, and if you've got any questions, thoughts, or feelings, now would be a good time.